Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another installment of my weekly legal presentation called Legal Ease, where I attempt to discuss important topics that pertain to personal injury law for the benefit of my clients and their loved ones if they've been hurt in motor vehicle accidents, if they are simply wanting important information about how they can protect themselves and their families in case something bad were to happen in the way of an accident. And I am privileged tonight to have with me my good friend, Craig Most. Craig is a property and casualty insurer with the company Most Insurance in Tampa. And Craig, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Most Insurance is an independent insurance agency that was actually started in Tampa by my father in 1973. We became independent in 2008, having represented Nationwide Insurance up until that point in time. That was a great opportunity for us and something we wish we had been able to do much earlier, because instead of representing a company and selling their products, it gave us the opportunity to find what was best for our clients. Now, by design or by title, I'm an insurance agent. However, myself and our team at Most Insurance consider ourselves as educators first. We work with clients and try to provide, whether it's questions to ask themselves or whether it's asking questions that they may not have thought of just because of what we've been able to see over the many years of working with businesses, individuals, and families. But it gives us an opportunity to help people find what really is most important for them. Because in all cases, every individual, every scenario, every amount of assets, every financial stability varies from client to client. So instead of telling people what they should have, we help the client come up with what's most important for them and let them make the ultimate decision. So we're educators first that happen to do so in the insurance industry, an area that is so desperately misunderstood.
Absolutely, and I encourage education in all aspects, particularly, a lot of my job is educating my clients as to the important issues that surround their accidents, their injuries, and of course, insurance coverage. And insurance coverage is important because it's the thing that you can do before an accident happens that can practically assure that you'll be in a position to be successful in the event an accident does happen. But tell us a little bit about your personal background.
Well, Chris, I'm actually a native from Tampa, born and raised, grew up on Davis Island, and then in South Tampa, went to Plant High School. After that, went to Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana, on an Army ROTC scholarship. Finished my degree in 4 years, and then was active duty as a second lieutenant in the United States Army. Served my time, including some time overseas. In Bosnia, as that was the hot spot at that point in time, and then got out of the military as a captain. In the military, I was an armor officer, so I got to play with those very large tanks, which helps equip me for today's day and age combat on the roads, without the large ammunition, of course. From there, I've had opportunities to live and work in many different locations, but ultimately the warm weather and the opportunity to be in Florida with the state as it's growing was what pulled me back home, and I don't regret any of it. Great opportunity, but I will tell you, it's nice to be able to live in a world where you've got palm trees and bananas in your yard, and be able to enjoy the nice harsh winters that we have, like that so many of the rest don't get to have. So that's something that gets to work with me. I have 2 daughters that go to school here locally, and have just enjoyed seeing Tampa grow as a city from the small quiet neighborhood where downtown closed at 4:55 in the past, to the point that we're really the eyes of the country are upon us because of the Lightning and then the Rays, and then what's going on with the Bucks. But not just that, for so many good reasons, whether it's the culture, whether it's the beaches, whether it's the food. Tampa's really coming into its own and bringing a lot of people from all over the world right here in our backyard.
That's really great. And you can see just how much Tampa's grown. I mean, Tampa Airport itself has expanded to practically twice its size. So obviously they're expecting a lot of volume to be hitting Tampa. And with that comes a lot of drivers, a lot more probably than we've even become used to in the crowded past few years. And of course, where drivers are involved, accidents are involved, and insurance issues are involved. And now you basically address these issues for a living, and that's fantastic. So, kind of hoping that you'd be able to give us a little bit of insight, in particular, to drivers and prospective drivers when they're purchasing an auto policy. And I indicate that it's one of the most important decisions you will make. That and who your lawyer is, of course. But purchasing a policy of auto insurance is no joke. I mean, it is a very, very important process, and obviously very, very important to have a reputable, caring type of insurance broker like yourself, who takes the time to instruct his clients and isn't just trying to push a policy on them, but rather get them what they need and have them understand their coverages. So as far as an auto policy is concerned, give us a little bit of information about, what is first party and what is third party coverage.
Well, when you really look at a policy, it's going to do two things. It's either going to provide coverage for yourself to make repairs that the check actually gets issued to you, or to help with your damage or your injuries, or the policy will respond and pay on your behalf. So the policy breaks down, and the coverage is the same whether you're with auto owners or State Farm. The types of coverage is the same, but the limits and then the different pieces vary from there. So when you purchase a policy, the two big things you're getting that help you on your behalf is if you are at fault in an accident, your liability, which is typically broken down by how much occurrence and how much aggregate, meaning how many people or how many per person, how much money per person, and how many total people in the accident. If you're at fault and you were to hit a car that had 3 people in it, your policy could pay up to the top amount, the aggregate, for the whole accident, but it's capped by person. That's important to have enough insurance from that standpoint, because what if you were to hit the vehicle with a family in it and you had 3 or 4 people in it? It's not just your $10,000 that many people gravitate towards, that the state mandates as having $10,000 per person. But the reason it's important to have enough is because if your policy pays out its limits, then the other party, the injured party, is free and clear to come after you personally, after yourself, your assets, your future income. So just imagine if you hit a Mercedes with a cardiologist who's just starting their career, and they're now no longer able to perform their duties that they would have done for the next 30 years. How do you replace that income? Well, I tell you, it could come out of your pocket and your wages by way of garnishment. So liability is key because it pays on your behalf. You want to have as much as you can, not that you ever want to be in an accident, but if you ever do, you don't have to worry about being able to make ends meet.
So you're talking about bodily injury liability coverage,
absolutely, right? That's the bodily injury liability. The other coverage that really pays on your behalf is property damage. So if you hit the same Mercedes with the gentleman or the professional in the vehicle, the cardiologist, that property damage is going to be what pays to repair or replace their car, depending on the extent of the damage from that standpoint. Again, if you have $10,000, which is all the state requires you to carry, how far is $10,000 going to go in replacing a brand new Mercedes? It's not. So then they're going to be saying, hey, let me talk to your lawyer, or better yet, if you don't have a lawyer, that's going to be easy money. So those two coverages, more than anything else, pay on your behalf if you're at fault in an accident. The remainder of the coverage really helps to make you whole. So whether that's your comprehensive or collision deductibles, you back into something, a tree limb falls on your car, you're a knucklehead and you don't pull your car out of the flooding waters before it stalls out, someone steals your car, your car catches on fire. A deer jumps out when you're driving down 301 at night and hits your car, or you hit the deer grazing in the middle of 301 in the middle of the nighttime. Those types of coverage then go in to help you. Now, it's interesting. Many times the lenders, so if you get a lease, the lenders are always saying you have to carry comprehensive and collision coverage. Well, why is that? They want to make sure the policy is going to pay so they can ultimately be made whole, because they don't want a totaled car 2 years into the lease. So they're going to require that. But once they're satisfied, your lease is paid off, if you still want to be able to repair or replace your vehicle without having to go out of pocket for those types of claim scenarios I explained just as a few, those coverages are important. It helps to make you full, or make yourself whole. You've got in there rental reimbursement. If you're in a claim and you're at fault and you want to get your car repaired, you can get a rental car. Towing and labor is often available for those that don't have AAA insurance, or the motor club access for services like that. Medical payments, where it actually works differently with each health insurance company. And I tell you what, health insurance is so confusing. We could spend a year on this and never really get anywhere. So I'm not going to do that. But it's another way to augment coverage for medical needs that will respond after your personal injury protection has been exhausted.
Now, what is the difference between medical payment coverage and personal injury protection?
Great question. So with personal injury protection, you've got three components. In those three components, you've got medical expenses, which, Chris, I know you detailed very, very clearly to your clients. It's involved where you have 14 days if you've been in an accident, regardless of at fault. If you're at fault, the other party's at fault. If you need to go see a doctor, you've got some soreness, you don't feel it, you've got headaches, you go and you utilize the medical coverage portion of it. Now, you have to go to a certified physician or doctor, so you just can't go to your neighbor and they write you a doctor's note, but you have to go to a reputable location in a quick enough time for them to authorize additional coverage. So there's up to $8,000 of the $10,000 of personal injury can be used for medical expense, and that's if you use it all the way to the end of the limits. But Craig, you can only, so you said 8,000, but the coverage is for 10. What else is involved? A little bit if you don't really have an active income by employment. The third component to it is accidental death. If you're killed in the accident, you can get up to $5,000 to help pay for final expenses from that standpoint. But wait, 8,000 and 5,000 and 6,000 is not, that's more than $10,000. Correct. You are capped with personal injury at $10,000. Typically, where you're going to use the most coverage is going to be in medical payments. So, heaven forbid something bad happens that requires you to be out and incur a large amount of expense that's going to exceed $8,000. MedPay can then come into play and help extend that. MedPay doesn't have any effect on the lost wages or the accidental death. So it's a way to give yourself some additional medical coverage.
Now, insurance companies are not entitled to be reimbursed for PIP that they pay out from their insureds, correct?
So the way that the insurance companies, they're not going to, the term is subrogation. So they're not going to go to the other party and say, you're at fault, and so you have to reimburse us for the personal injury. You're correct, but when it gets to the bodily injury or it gets to the property damage, sometimes when there's an accident, the other party may not know, or the injured party may not know who the insurance company is for the party who caused the damage or injury. And so sometimes trying to find out, who do I call? What do I do to file this claim? If I don't know who to speak with, I may, to get immediate help in personal injury, you've got those 14 days, the clock is running automatically. Sometimes the insured would file a claim on their own policy first with their own carrier to start the process moving along, and then maybe down the road through discovery or different issues or different opportunities, you find out, oh, the other party had insurance company X and here's their policy. So if that's the case, the insurance companies are going to do their best to make the injured parties whole and then the insurance companies will work back together each other so that they get whole based on the circumstances of each claim.
Now, you covered a lot of very important aspects of automobile insurance. You covered bodily injury liability. You covered PIP, which is personal injury protection. You covered medical payment coverage. You covered comprehensive and collision. But what is the most important coverage that Florida drivers should include on their policy?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Chris, and you're right. The most important coverage, in my opinion, is uninsured motorist. And the reason for that is between 30 and 35% of drivers in Florida today do not carry insurance, even though it's required by law. Sometimes they'll buy it, register their car, let their insurance lapse, or they'll cancel it. They just don't see the value in carrying the insurance. So 30 to 35% do that. Of the remaining drivers and insureds that carry the coverage, of that, about 25% carry the state minimums, which is $10,000 per person for liability, $20,000 per accident, and the $10,000 for the property damage, along with $10,000 for personal injury. You get into an accident with more than one person and it's anything more than a fender bender, your limits are not going to be enough. So when you do the math and you look at it, almost 50% of the drivers in the state of Florida, so in the city of Tampa and its nearby area, that's what, 3 million people live there. How many of them are driving? Let's just say 2 million conservatively. So the 2 million drivers in the Bay Area, half of them do not have the insurance to help you if they're at fault in an accident. So if you're a gambling person and like to go Vegas, you don't have to. Just open your eyes in traffic, and every other car that goes by doesn't have enough financial means or insurance to take care of you if they make the mistake and turn and create the accident. So why is uninsured motorist the most important thing in my mind? It is not required by law. The state does not require it. The insurance industry doesn't require it. But it's the most valuable because if the other party is at fault and they do not have or have enough insurance to help you with your injuries, your damages, etc., you can file a claim against your own policy. So it's the only way that you are banking on yourself to protect yourself, because half of the Floridians out there don't protect you the way that they should. It's not a responsibility that they feel is warranted, and they just ignore it, whether it's a cost, whether it's a lack of education in many cases, or whether it is just out of ignorance. So by protecting yourself with the uninsured motorist coverage, at least you're banking that someone in that accident is going to have the appropriate coverage to help yourself and those in your vehicle.
Now, isn't it true that you can increase the value of your uninsured motorist by stacking it times the number of vehicles that you own or that you insure?
Great question. So yes, if you have more than one vehicle on your policy, because it is such a valuable coverage, the insurance companies will let you stack it. So with that, what that means is if your limit of uninsured motorist in this example is $500,000 per person, $500,000 per accident, and you have 2 vehicles on your policy, if you have it unstacked, it is that $500,000 per person, $500,000 per accident. However, by stacking it, you take your coverage limit and you multiply it times the number of vehicles on your policy. So by having 2 vehicles and stacking, you now have $1 million per occurrence and $1 million per accident for your uninsured motorist. But it doesn't end there. Really, what I encourage the insureds to think about and consider heavily is also looking at an umbrella insurance, because umbrella insurance will not only extend over your personal liability, meaning your liability that comes with your home or your renter's policy or your condo insurance, but it will also extend over your liability, your bodily injury liability, and your auto insurance policy, and over your uninsured motorist coverage. So if that individual who has 2 cars and carries $500,000 of uninsured motorist coverage per person and per accident, they stack it, so now they have that $1 million. They can take their umbrella and add that $1 million or $2 million, depending on the carrier or the coverage, on top of the uninsured motorist. Chris, this hit home more for me when I was a younger driver than any other time, because a gentleman who was in the industry worked with my father, and they lived out in St. Pete. And at the time, he and his wife were driving down the road, and they had one of those small little Miatas, you know, the two-door small car, not much larger than the Malibu Grand Prix go-karts that used to be out there. And a vehicle ran a red light and T-boned the Miata. And it did so much damage. The insurance agent was driving, his wife was the passenger, and she took the brunt of the accident. She spent the next year and a half in the hospital. Their medical bills neared $2 million with everything over that point in time. And fortunately enough, he was educated on the value of uninsured motorist, his liability, his uninsured motorist, and his umbrella made the difference, and it did not bankrupt his family while he was caring for his wife. So you wish that the other parties would have the appropriate coverage. You pray that they learn and they get what they should have to protect you, because driving is a privilege. It is not a right, and we should treat it that way. But as long as there are people who don't treat it as a privilege, then you need to make sure, take advantage of the opportunities to protect yourself, even if it means at the expense of your dollars. At least you know there's coverage there.
Well, that's fantastic information, Craig. Thank you very much. And thank you for appearing on our segment this week. And, you know, one of the things, it appears my title from last week didn't change, the quickest way to lose your driver's license. And you mentioned it earlier. It actually hit home on something I talked about last week, which is if you allow your insurance to lapse. You mentioned the people that register their vehicle, take insurance out, then let it lapse. But one of the consequences of lapse of insurance is notification of suspension of your license. If you get caught driving with a suspended license and that happens 3 times, you could be charged as a felon and possibly become a convicted felon simply because you didn't carry auto insurance. So that's a pretty powerful message, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and it's unfortunate, but then there's other meat and there's teeth to that penalty. If you go without your license, it's suspended. In some cases, the Department of Motor Vehicles in the state will require you carry certain limits of insurance that are substantially higher than you did before. So not only will you penalize yourself and potentially lose your license, but you could then financially incur damages because your insurance coverage is going to be much more excessive than it was before because of the decision that you made. So it really is one of those gifts that will keep getting you. So you just don't want to get into that deep hole and then give yourself such a steep hill to climb out of. It's just brutal. But Chris, it's much like we talk about. It's having someone that you can talk to help answer those questions. I know a number of the times that we've had policyholders have issues and questions, or they've been involved in something. I've absolutely recommended that they speak to you because you take the time and educate, you ask the questions, and you help them understand. But not only do you help them at that moment, what I very much like about what you take care of your clients is you then educate them so they don't get in the same situation in the future. You know what? We all make mistakes, and there's a lot of things that we don't know. What is it? What you don't know can't hurt you, but it really can. But education is so key. It's okay to make a mistake. We all do it on different things to different degrees. But it's what you do once you know to prevent it from happening again. And that's what I really like about you, Chris, and how you take care of your clients. You really make a difference and take care of them in the now, but you help them get whole in the future and then stand on much firmer ground. So I appreciate all the education, all the wonderful things you've done for a number of our clients over the years.
And I feel the same way about what you've done for my clients. And I would urge anybody listening to contact Craig, and even if you're not in the market for purchasing new insurance, have him review your policy. He'll do that, and you will wind up being a much better off motorist for it. You know, he's there to educate you, to answer your questions, as I am, and he will take the time. And it's a very, very important thing to do, and something not to put off, because these things happen. They happen every day. And you need to make sure that you're protected. And Craig is one of those people that is there to help you do the things that are necessary to educate you to protect yourself. So Craig, thank you very much for appearing on my segment this evening. Very, very
My
much.
pleasure,
It's great
Chris.
to have you.
Great opportunity, and I always enjoy speaking with you. You've got you do such great work for so many people. I'm glad I can help out.
And you too. Thank you very much. And you've taken care of my stuff for years, and my family's as well. And we certainly appreciate it very, very much. So, and to the audience, folks, thank you for tuning in this evening. If you like what you hear, please feel free to smash the like button or comment or share. I appreciate your comments and your questions. I actually designed entire segments around the questions that you have. So please feel free to do that, and it's very much appreciated. And thank you very much. And Craig, thank you again. And everybody have a fantastic evening and drive safely. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye, everybody.